I am wrong. I'll make it better. That's what I do. Recently, a member pointed out to me there was a guy was, you know, talking about the golf grip, and he probably talked about a lot of things and so on. And I can't I can't post the video because he made it private. I don't know why. And my golf grip works, right? Because it allows you to do a natural release. You can learn to feel the natural release, which you can't with the thumb of the grip, because the thumb of the grip, your wrist wants to turn over. There's a hook pattern, by the way. That to fix that, people start bending the wrist to impact, developing a sweep. And I used a different grip because I realized when I was testing researching this. Now, I'm going to get some criticism, right? Because when you do things better and differently, most people don't understand what you're doing, because all the information you have is from people teaching in golf for 120 years. So your brain is kind of, this is what is golf is supposed to be about. Now that leads to developing something called confirmation bias. That means that there is some social experiment about this. They did this headline, very controversial headline, right? And then they had the article was actually the opposite of the headline. Social experiments. And if people did read the article, in the end of that was that if you've been reading this article, I want you to make a comment in the comment section below with the word banana. And when you was reading all those comments, it was 70, 80, 90, I don't know how many comments were, before someone wrote banana. Basically, 60, 70, 80%, whatever, 90, whatever, percent of people never read the article. They just read the headline and then they apply the confirmation bias to either approve or disapprove. But those people who read the article realize, oh, this is actually the opposite of the, and then they wrote banana because they, in the article said, if you've been reading this article and just post the word banana in the comment section because this is a social experiment. That's what you do. You use a confirmation. So when I come and present a different way to hold a golf club, people are going to give criticism based on confirmation bias, and then I ignore people because they don't understand what you're talking about. I had a golf instructor coming to my YouTube channel recently when I talk about teaching a lift in the takeaway, which is the only way that you can teach the takeaway that actually works. Nothing else works. And he was making a comment that's basically just pure nonsense. And confirmation bias is a problem because you never test things. You just give criticism because you think you know what you're talking about. And this instructor was actually telling people about the grip that they should trust him because he can feel the pressure of his pinkie or something like that. And that's really important to impact and whatever, right? And that's just pure nonsense. The last 2 days I was giving people a drill to feel and what to pay attention to in the release. And you can't feel the release with the thumb on the shaft. It's a biomechanical thing. You have to use my grip. And when you can feel that, then you can actually develop something called a skill. You can actually feel the release happening the way it's supposed to, and the way it happens because of physics. People may have ideas about how the release works, but physics, you can't change physics, right? And if your body, and your hands, whatever is up, releasing all that stuff, it doesn't matter what kind of grip you use because your release will be based on physics. Right? Apply pressure, vector changes, stuff like that. No matter what your, confirmation bias is based on. It will be probably wrong because if it's a confirmation bias, you don't know. So there is a lot of people going to criticize and so, but it's not solid, it's not valid because it's based on confirmation bias. So I just ignore that stuff. One of my members did the proper testing. He went to Trackman and used the Molin golf grip, and then he used my grip. And he'd been using my grip for a year almost now, and he'd been saying that after 9 months he told me, oh, by the way, I never basically can't really hit that slice or hook anymore using your grip. And when he posted the Trackman iron, said, well, my grip for him was 100% more accurate. Thumb on the shaft, 100% less accurate for him. Now, I know it's just an isolated example. That doesn't mean you're going to have 100% better accuracy if you shift to my grip. You're going to be more accurate, yes. because of, how the release works with the wrist and stuff. And what this kind of stuff in golf for the last 120 years, not just with the grip, it's takeaway and other thing, is people don't understand the golf swing. And when you don't understand something, you offer guesswork based on theory. That means it leads to something called conceptual teaching. Conceptual teaching means that they explain it so you understand things, but you can't do them. For example, how do you build a space rocket? Well, you have a container, you have fuel, you have an engine, you have a control mechanism, you have a gyro so the rocket doesn't tip over when you And then, well, it's kind of easy to understand how to build a space rocket. Well, but can you do it? I can't. I understand how to build a space rocket, but I don't have the skill set, the engineering skill set, to build a rocket. I have to build an engine from scratch. I have to, how the fuel works with it, because I have to cool it down and all that other stuff, and it has to withstand temperatures, pressure, whatever, right? And you have to develop the math for that, and so a lot of things you have to actually learn. While understanding how to build a space rocket is not difficult. But to be able to actually do it is fucking difficult. Right? And the same thing is true with golf. So what people have been teaching, is a concept like swing the bat doesn't mean shit, right? The C7 doesn't mean shit. Keep the left arm straight doesn't mean shit. It actually develops a reverse pivot if you do, follow the instruction. Keep the wheel takeaway. Actually goes against physics, by the way. Did you know that most people that teach you golf, probably basically everyone, would teach you things that goes against laws of physics in the world, and how the body interacts with objects in the world. In our case, it's the golf club. And this is highly paid instructors of teaching pros. They teach people that things that goes against physics. Because all this guesswork in golf and all stuff has been leading to conceptual teaching. Now you're going to teach a concept. They even name the swing systems they do conceptual, right? All that stuff. And it leads to kind of a misunderstanding that if I understand this, then I can improve, and you can't. You may have a placebo effect. You may have some pink, rosa, pink eye romance. Oh, wonderful! And you can maybe hit a little bit better shot there. Oh, I believe, and then suddenly you're gonna hit bad shot again when you go play, and you don't know why. Here's the thing: what you've been seeing on TV for many, many years. You've seen pros hit shots. They hit the shot from fairway and suddenly hit such a bad shot. They hit into the forest, and then they look down and they have this kind of puzzled look in the face, and they look at the caddy. What was that? And they look down at the grass again and the ball, because they have no idea when they hit their shot. Because they can't feel the release. You have to remember that. Because they use the thumb of the shaft. So they can't feel what actually happened. And they have no idea why the body was doing that. And you've been seeing that happening on TV for years and years and years. Every time a tuber do that, they kind of look at the cat, they kind of look at the grass and go, what just happened? They have no idea. Because they can't feel the release. I know that people think that they know what they're talking about in golf, that you should trust them. I don't tell people that. I tell people to test my takeaway, for example, to see how they do it. Because one of my instructors, members in the group is an instructor, sorry, wrong sequence. And he had this kid, 18, 19-year-old, he wanted to be a pro, so he was teaching him, what they teach in the modern golf and all that stuff. But he'd been practicing my takeaway, this is a couple of years ago, and my first iteration of the takeaway. And he applied that for the kid on the first rank session, and the kid hit 30 meters longer with an 8-iron with my takeaway. And you can only do what you know when you teach. And that means if you don't know what you're doing, you will teach that. And it will end up, developing confirmation bias. This is the right way. And then you do it because your confirmation bias, yes, this is the right way, but then you applying conceptual teaching, and it may not be the right way. And you can see that in other sports, like what were people teaching in high jump before Fosbury came along? Dick Fosbury, right? And won the Olympic gold in high jump. how did people ski jump before Johnny Buklev won the World Cup season back in '92, I think, something like that? There is a before and after. Those two guys did things. Why? Because it was easier to perform better. Simply put. But people have been teaching because they are stuck in the theory guesswork, and then they apply, all these conceptual teachings, and they have forgotten everything what we do when you learn to do something is based on a skill set you develop. But people can't teach that because you don't know how that works. But I do. So I've been, developing these kind of drills. In the last 2 days when I presented that, the instructor that lives in Southern Europe basically made a comment like, this is the best presentation, precise and all about how the release works. And you can learn to do that using my drills. But to really learn the skills that you need to use my grip, you can't use the thumb on the shaft, it won't work because you can't feel the release. And just so you know that it also leads to all these kind of problems with, this is why people talk about the weight shift, weight pressure in your, when you're moving your body, because they can't teach you that because you can't feel it. So now they have to develop a system to talk about it, weight pressure and weight shift and all that stuff, because you can't really do it because you can't feel the difference. You didn't know that. So a lot of people, they believe their nonsense or conceptual teach is going to work for you, and it doesn't. It just leads for you to develop the same things over and over again, like my tester did, 12 teachers. And he's been stuck with me because he started to use my grip, he started to apply my takeaway, and he says, it's just grip it and rip it now. And the problem for amateurs, which is, this is why I'm going to make a golf instructor for amateurs, that actually does work. Because otherwise, you're going to be able to, keep doing what you've been doing for 120 years, thinking you're improving when you're not. It's just actually a merry-go-round. It just goes round and round and round and round because you end up in the same place. It just goes to shit anyway, and you don't know why. And it's not just you as an amateur, it's for two processes saying, they look down in the fairway and go, why did I hit that shot? They don't know why. And there's a funny experiment people can do. You can imagine picking up a glass or a cup or something like that and drink water or coffee or tea or whatever, And here's a funny thing, if you imagine how it's going to feel like when you grip that, before you grip it, it's never going to match when you actually grip it. Here's a funny thing about how the brain works. So I'm going to imagine how it's going to feel like when I grip this glass, and it's never going to match exactly what you're doing. The reason for that is, you have to create difference. Otherwise the brain wouldn't know the difference between what you're, what's actually going on and, outside the world. And this is how people build reality, that at some point you think what confirmation bias is telling you is real. But when you actually test it, you discover it's not the same. And you may have heard about people, for many years now, that people in social media have a problem with facts and truths. And the reason for that is that you use your confirmation bias and never actually check the facts and test it. Or, in science they do experiments to replicate things, right? So if someone developed an experiment on cold fusion many years ago, they were saying cold fusion experiment was working because they put in energy in the machine and they got more energy out of the machine, basically solving the energy crisis. A pretty big thing at the time. But the problem was that when they presented the experimentation and all that stuff, no one could replicate it. They couldn't replicate it. It didn't work. Because there's people working with the cold fusion experiment either intentionally falsified information, data, or they made a mistake and didn't realize it, which is bad science, by the way. So it kind of died out. It didn't work. The only way we can develop, send in one little bit of energy, get more energy out, is using fusion, the way the sun works up there in space. But to do so, because we're trying to solve that, because it would be really good, then we wouldn't need nuclear power or solar or such, because we would use pretty good energy there. But they have not been able to do that yet. So science is, observation, replication, testing, and you have to spend enough time. If you're gonna come and criticize my lift, for example, and you don't understand the subject, like one golf instructor did, he criticized my lift and talk about some bullshit, nonsense. Or if you're gonna criticize the grip by, teaching, you have to understand it. And you can't do that by using confirmation bias. Then I just ignore you, because you don't understand the subject. Why should I talk to you about it? Why should I pay attention? It just costs energy. As you know, I have an energy division disorder. That means I, have very prioritizing how I deal with, this kind of stuff, and I just ignore people about it. But if you pay attention to what I talk about, some of the things I've been saying that people can verify and test for themselves, because you don't need to trust me. You can verify and test this yourself and find out how it works. I think that's, how you're supposed to, do things, by developing the skill set and learn how to discover this is how the release actually works. Then you can actually improve your ball striking. With conceptual teaching, shit out of luck. But hey, you don't need to trust me.